the legislative we can review.
All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, as you can see here, it says this is a new bill that was introduced. And it says to establish a government-wide approach to improving digital identity and for other purposes.
Oh boy.
So see, it kind of ties into what we were talking about here.
Nice.
All right. So the this was presented by Bill Foster. He's a Democrat out of Illinois. It was just introduced on the 10th, and then it was referred to the Committee on Oversight and Reform and the Science, Space and Technology and Ways and Means.
Oh yeah. Can you go back up just to see the title again, the purpose of that? To establish a government-wide approach to improving digital identity, whatever that is. Okay, okay.
Yeah, because and you know they always have to add this and for other purposes. Right. It's every single bill.
Other duties as assigned,
and for other
like
purposes.
Job description.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Okay, and so on here they don't actually have the legislation. I was able to find the legislation, but of course they try to hide all this stuff, right? And again, it's been referred. There's 3 co-sponsors. I don't really know anything about, but this is a Democrat from Rhode Island, so we'll see how that goes with their progressive movements right now. And so, okay, so then moving on, this is Bill Foster. I didn't know anything about him, but he did put out a press release on this, and that's actually where I found the legislation. And essentially, breaking it down, it says this legislation would work to modernize the country's lagging digital identity infrastructure with a 3-pronged approach. It would establish a task force to bring together key federal agencies with state and local government representatives to develop secure methods for government agencies to validate identity attributes to protect the privacy and security of individuals and support reliable, interoperable digital identity verification tools in the public and private sectors. It would direct the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, to create a new framework of standards to guide government agencies when providing digital identity verification services, placing emphasis on privacy and security. And then finally, the bill would establish a grant program within the Department of Homeland Security to allow states to upgrade the systems they use to use driver's licenses and other types of identity credentials, and to support the development of secure, interoperable state systems that enable digital identity verification in accordance with the framework developed by NIST. I don't know what you guys are collecting from this, but what I am getting from this is that essentially they're trying to make a massive network where they have everyone's information, and it's no longer that you can escape to a certain state if you want to not be identified, or you know what I'm saying? Like everyone is going to be on this.
Right. It's cloaked in the language of we're protecting people, right? But it's really,
Right.
And I thought it's interesting.
I do have the bill, but go ahead.
It's interesting that he said we're trying to catch up with the developed world as opposed to the rest of the developed world. So, I guess we're not part of the developed world anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
come
China,
on,
right?
dude! It's such BS.
Yeah. And so the question is whether or not this simply implies, a database, a nationwide database, or does it also imply tools such as drones and facial recognition and, GPS access to everyone's phones, etc., that allows, it to be really implemented, like they really know where you are at all times,
Right.
And all your genetic profile and all that stuff too, right?
Right.
So they can target certain groups based on that or whatever. Yeah, nice.
Yep. So again, it does say, and it doesn't have the House bill here, but it is HR 8215. It says to establish a nationwide or a government-wide approach to improving digital identity and for other purposes. And it's going to be called the Improving Digital Identity Act of 2020. And so it says the lack of an easy, affordable, and reliable way. See, it's convenient for you. We're doing this for you.
I know,
okay, it's not for us. It's for you. All right. Way for organizations, businesses, and government agencies, and government agencies to identify whether an individual is who they claim to be online, creates an attack vector that is widely exploited by adversaries in cyberspace, and precludes many high-value transactions from being available online.
I think it would take a 13-year-old kid probably 10 minutes to like pretend they're. I mean, it just seems like it's already out of date. The 2020 law, it's going to be out of date by 2021.
Right.
If it passes.
Right. Well, but that's why I think that this is setting up that infrastructure for a continually growing like system. Do you know what I'm saying? Where they're going to continue, they're just going to add on to this, it's not going to just be this, it'll continue on. And then they kind of like try to justify it for you, right? So it says more than 164 million consumer records containing personally identified, 164 million, that's not even half of the population of the United States, right? But personally identifiable information were breached in 2019, increasing the total number of data breaches by 17% from the previous year. And also, let's keep into account the fact that we like, of these companies, you have companies like Uber, right? Who they were hacked and they didn't let their drivers know that they're actually going through some like big lawsuit right now because they were hacked and all of their drivers' information was taken, right? And they didn't let anybody know about that. Or Experian, right? How you have all these identity thefts that are going on, but it's because of these outside government sources having our information, right? So then in 2019, losses resulting from identity fraud amounted to $16.9 billion.
I bet if you took like the past like 10 years, the vast majority of everyone in the United States has at one time had some account hacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, when they hack like these big accounts like Target or something like that, it's like 100 million are compromised, but the actual number of people who actually have money taken or whatever because of that is actually probably it's a very small percentage of that.
Oh yeah, but
so
you're all exposed.
You're all exposed. I mean, but
Right.
Everyone's been exposed. But the point is they're trying to like create this scare, fear culture that we have to take care of this problem, and it's probably China or somebody like that is going after your data, right? So.
Yeah.
Russia or something.
Exactly. And really what it comes down to is that these companies, they don't invest enough in their security systems. And that's why they end up getting hacked and all this, right? Is because they don't want to invest in this enough. So what's going to happen is that we're going to have government come in and regulate all of these things, right? But I don't know. It just
Good
to
luck
me, it's
with
just
that.
another big brother. It's just another big brother.
Oh yeah.
So it says trustworthy digital identity solutions can help underbanked. And remember, we talked about this
I never heard of this term. I never heard of this term before. Underbanked and unbanked. Am I an unbanked individual?
Everybody needs to be online. Everybody needs to be in the system.
Is that like if you're a bankster, you're not unbanked, but if you're not a bankster, you're unbanked? I mean, what does that mean, unbanked? I never heard of that.
Unbanked is just you deal essentially with cash, right? And they want everything to be on a digital ledger so that way they can track everything. All right. So
that's why we don't like cyber currency.
Sorry, what?
That's why we don't like cyber currency, right?
Well, that's why Bill Barr actually wanted to make encrypting certain information, like for digital currency, wanted to make that illegal, right?
A felony, right? I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Right. So unbanked individuals better access to digital finances through innovative delivery channels that promote financial inclusion. Because again, this is all for you. And, they're saying that, it says the inadequacy of current digital identity solutions degrade security and privacy. So blah, 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 it gives all that crap. And then it talks about how in 2016, and this is why I'm saying this is just building. It's a building block to just continue going. The 2016 Bipartisan Commission on Enhancing National Cybersecurity called for the federal government to create an interagency task force directed to find secure, user-friendly, privacy-centric ways in which agencies can serve as one authoritative source to validate identity attributes in the broader identity market. And then, so then this is what it's supposed to be establishing, right? So it says there is established in the executive office of the president a task force to be known as the Improving Digital Identity Task Force. The purpose of this task force is to establish a government-wide effort to develop secure methods for federal, state, and local agencies to validate identity attributes, to protect the privacy and security of individuals, and support reliable, interoperable digital identity verification in the public and private sectors. The director shall be appointed by the president. Awesome, right? Okay. The task force shall include the following individuals or designees of such individuals. So we're going to have the Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of Homeland Security. We know we can't be without that. Secretary of State, Secretary of Education, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, the Commissioner of the Social Security Administration, the Director of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is NIST, obviously, because they're doing the framework, the Administrator of General Services, and the heads of other federal agencies and offices who the president may designate or invite.
So you have all these people in these high positions all sitting there going, how can I tap into this national registry of every person electronically?
Exactly.
That's pretty creepy when you just think of the overreach that always happens during any time of crisis or perceived crisis, right?
Right.
Any kind of COVID, 9/11, whatever like that, the overreach that happens, this is guaranteed to give us some abuses.
Yeah, and especially because think about it, if there's only one way of verifying your identity, you are at the mercy of this agency.
Right.
Then, right?
Yeah.
Because what about if you do something bad? We've been talking about this whole social score and the pre-crimes and all this kind of stuff. What about if you get flagged and suddenly you can't be identified on anything?
Right. Yeah. Or
then you can't shop online. You can't do anything. That's the whole purpose, is that you won't be able to do anything without them saying that, yes, you are this person, and yes, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
That to me is very scary. I can't. And then the last part that I wanted to talk about this was, so no later than 18 months after the date of the enactment of this act, the Secretary of Homeland Security shall award grants to states to upgrade systems that provide driver's license and other types of identity credentials to support the development of highly secure, interoperable state systems that enable digital identity verification. So the Department of Homeland Security will be in charge of the money that goes out to these programs.
Yeah. Now, if you were to ask around, like I personally know someone that had to deal with, like, they kept getting for like years, they would get a notification that they were late on their bills and they were subject to fines because somebody else had the same Social Security number, or there was some kind of Social Security number mix up. And they would go to the Social Security Administration, try to get straightened away. They thought it was straightened away and it wasn't, and they had to go back for years. So imagine the identity theft and the problems that could be caused to people by this, even just not due to like them wanting to, but just through incompetence.
Right.
It's horrific.
Is this going to pass, do you think? I mean, does this have enough support?
I think that because, again, this was back in 2016. They made a commission, or they assigned for them to come up with this task force. So that's why I really think that this is just the next step. You know what I'm saying? And so then it says, not later than 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, the Comptroller General of the United States shall submit to the Committee of Ways and Means and Financial Services of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Finance of the Senate a report that includes the following: an analysis of legal and regulatory requirements with respect to the collection and retention of Social Security numbers by non-governmental organizations. So now your Social Security number or your Social Security benefits are going to get
my
fucked
Social
up
Security number. Oh
a recommendation on the necessity and effectiveness of any legal and regulatory requirement analyzed pursuant to paragraph 1 and the use of form of identification other than a Social Security number. So
it's all going to, like, to vote, you're going to need ID or whatever. And it's like, in most countries you have an internal passport. I think the US is one of the few countries that doesn't have that. Like, in Russia and Germany, you have an internal passport. So that's what people use. Now, they call it ID, like in Germany, they call it personal ID. And it's like a little card or whatever, and you carry around with you. And it's like we use our driver's license here for ID. They use that there. But Americans have always been resistant to having any kind of national form of ID. So we end up using Social Security number, which is really not supposed to be meant for that. And I think there is an argument to be made to have some kind of standardized government ID, which is not the same as what we're talking about in this legislation. They're kind of tying it in with that, but they're talking here about, your digital identity, which is something that's going beyond just having an ID card or whatever. But the idea is, it looks like, once you have these standards for driver's licenses or for other non-driver's license state issued IDs, if there's a national federal standard for that, then it'll start saying you can use that ID for whatever purposes you use an ID for, whether it's voting in certain states or writing a check or whatever, as opposed to the kind of hodgepodge we have now. Right.
I mean, I definitely, obviously, they're not going to just implement, or, they're not going to present something to you that isn't to your benefit, right? It has to be to your benefit. That's how they sell it to you, right? Is that, oh, this is for you. This is for your convenience. It's for your safety. It's for your privacy. It's for your blah, 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 blah. But I'm too much of a cynic. I don't think that our government acts altruistically at all. I think that there is always some sort of motive, a grander motive than what is presented to us.
Well, everything that has been, Patriot Act, et cetera, FISA courts, everything has been subject to abuse, the same abuse that folks were concerned about and were, oh, you're not a patriot. This is a special time. We need to implement this, Right.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Right.
Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like I said, I think that this is just, we're heading in the direction of that social credit score. And this is one aspect, in my opinion, this is one aspect of that. Once we're all on some sort of main, like, centralized little hub of information.
Oh yeah.
That's it. That's what they need, right?
Right.
In order to be able to start implementing all this other stuff.
Well, we're all going to join People's Party and throw the bums out and elect the People's Party president, and this will all stop, right?
Yeah. It's a silver bullet. You did say it's a silver bullet.
Yeah.
Right?